My sister Clara's 18th birthday party was supposed to be perfect. Our house was filled with balloons, music, and the smell of her favorite chocolate cake. Everyone was there, friends, family, even our grumpy Uncle Robert managed a smile. I was the official photographer, capturing every laugh, every hug, every moment of her big day. Everything was going great until it was time for the speeches. Our dad went first, telling a sweet story about Clara as a baby. Then, it was my turn. I stood up, cleared my throat, and launched into a series of inside jokes and embarrassing childhood memories. The crowd was laughing, Clara was blushing, and it was all exactly as I planned. Then, I got to the punchline. And who could forget the time, I started, grinning at Clara, that Mom and Dad almost brought the wrong baby home from the hospital? Can you imagine? We almost ended up with some random baby named Jessica instead of our Clara. I expected laughter. What I got was a sudden deafening silence. The air in the room went from festive to freezing in a split second. My smile faltered as I looked around. My mom's face was ashen, her hand flying to her mouth. My dad stared at his feet, his jaw clenched so tight a muscle was twitching in his cheek. Clara just looked confused, her eyes darting between me and our parents. What? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. It was just a joke. You guys told me that story 100 times. My mom slowly shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. Oh, honey, she breathed. It wasn't a joke. And just like that, with one stupid, thoughtless line, the world as we knew it shattered. The story I'd always thought was a funny family anecdote was, in fact, the tip of an iceberg, a dark secret our parents had kept hidden for 18 years. There was another baby. There was a Jessica. And the story was far more complicated and heartbreaking than I could ever have imagined. Later that night, long after the last guest had awkwardly shuffled out, we all sat in the living room. The leftover cake sat on the table, untouched. The festive balloons now seemed to mock us. My parents finally told us the whole story. They explained that on the day Clara was born, there was another couple in the hospital, the Millers, who also had a baby girl they named Jessica. In a horrible mix-up, a tired nurse had switched the baby's wristbands. My parents took Jessica home, and the Millers took Clara. They didn't realize the mistake for 2 whole days. My dad's voice was thick with emotion as he described the phone call from the hospital, the gut-wrenching realization that the baby they'd been loving and bonding with wasn't theirs. He talked about the frantic drive back, the agonizing wait, and the surreal, painful exchange. Giving back a baby they'd already fallen in love with, and meeting their biological daughter for the first time 2 days late. We were so young, my mom whispered, wiping her eyes. We were terrified. The hospital was terrified of a lawsuit. They made us sign so many papers, non-disclosure agreements. They told us it was for the best if we just forgot about it. If we never spoke of the Millers or Jessica again. They decided to invent the joke as a way to cope, a way to bury the trauma under a layer of humor. Over the years, the lie became the truth. For me, it was just a funny story. For them, it was a constant painful reminder of what happened. Clara was pale, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. So, there's another family out there, another girl. Who was almost me, my dad nodded. The Millers. And their daughter, Jessica. He hesitated, then pulled out an old worn wallet from his back pocket. From a hidden flap, he extracted a tiny, faded photograph. It was a picture of a newborn baby with a wisp of dark hair, wrapped in a pink hospital blanket. That's her, he said softly. That's Jessica. The revelation sent a shockwave through our family. Clara became obsessed. She spent hours online, searching for Jessica Miller, born on the same day as her. The name was common, the search fruitless. It was like looking for a ghost. Her 18th birthday, a milestone that was supposed to be about celebrating her life, had become a hunt for the life she almost had. She grew distant, quiet. She would stare at her reflection in the mirror for long periods, as if trying to see a stranger. She'd ask my parents questions they couldn't answer. What did Jessica look like now? Was she happy? Did her parents ever tell her the story? Did she ever wonder about the baby who took her place for 2 days? The secret had been a wound that my parents tried to stitch up with a lie, but my joke had ripped it wide open, and now it was festering. Our family, once so close, felt fractured. The easy laughter was gone, replaced by tense silences and whispered arguments behind closed doors. I was consumed by guilt. My stupid joke had broken my sister and my family. One night, I found Clara crying in her room, her laptop open to another dead-end search. "I just need to know," she sobbed. "I feel like a part of me is missing. I need to know she's okay." Seeing her so broken, I knew I had to do something. The guilt was eating me alive. I had to fix this. My parents, paralyzed by fear and old promises, wouldn't act. So I had to. I started my own investigation, but I was smarter about it. I went back to the source. I found an old town directory from 18 years ago and looked up the hospital. I started calling old nurses, anyone who might have worked in the maternity ward back then. Most of them didn't remember or didn't want to. It was a long shot. Finally, after weeks of dead ends, I got a call back. It was a retired nurse named Brenda. She remembered the incident clearly. "It was a terrible time," she said, her voice heavy with memory. "That poor young couple, the Millers. My heart broke for them. My own heart was pounding. Do you know what happened to them? Where they went?" Brenda hesitated. "I'm not supposed to say anything, but they moved away not long after. Headed west, I think. Arizona, maybe?" The husband, Mark Miller, he was a landscape architect. That's all I remember. It wasn't much, but it was a start. A name, a profession, and a state. Mark Miller, landscape architect, Arizona. I dove back into the internet, but this time with a purpose. I cross-referenced professional directories, social media, public records. And then I found him. A Mark Miller, owner of a successful landscaping firm in Scottsdale, Arizona. His company website had a bio. It mentioned his wife, Sarah, and their beautiful daughter, Jessica, who was just starting college, studying art. There was a picture. My breath caught in my throat. The girl in the photo had my mom's eyes and my dad's smile. She looked so much like Clara, they could have been twins. I had found her. Showing Clara was the hardest thing I've ever done. I sat her down and turned my laptop towards her. She stared at the screen, at the face of the girl who was almost her own face reflected in the screen's glow. For a long moment, she was silent. Then she took a deep breath. "I want to meet her," she said, her voice firm, resolute. Convincing our parents was another battle. They were terrified of dredging up the past, of disrupting another family's life. "What if they don't want to see us?" my mom cried. "What if Jessica doesn't even know? We could ruin her life." "Or," Clara countered, her voice shaking but strong, "we could give her a piece of her story she never knew she was missing. We could give ourselves that, too. We can't live with this ghost between us anymore. We have to do this. For all of us." Reluctantly, they agreed. My dad, using the professional contact information from the website, wrote a carefully worded email to Mark Miller. He didn't reveal everything at once. He just said he was an old acquaintance from their hometown, and that he had something of personal importance to discuss regarding the birth of their daughters. The reply came less than an hour later. "I think I know what this is about. Please call me." That phone call between my dad and Mark Miller lasted for over 2 hours. Two fathers, separated by 2 decades and thousands of miles, finally sharing the story they were forced to bury. It turned out, the Millers had also struggled. They had told Jessica the truth when she was a teenager. She, like Clara, had always felt a sense of curiosity, a piece of her puzzle missing. They had tried to find us years ago, but my family had moved houses, and the trail went cold. They were just as eager to connect as we were. A week later, we were on a plane to Arizona. The flight was the quietest, most nerve-wracking 5 hours of my life. What would we say? How would it feel to stand face to face with the family that was inextricably linked to ours by a hospital error? The Millers were waiting for us at their front door. Mark and Sarah looked kind, their faces a mixture of anxiety and relief. And then I saw her, Jessica, standing just behind them. Seeing her and Clara side by side was surreal. They weren't identical, but the resemblance was undeniable. The same wavy brown hair, the same shape of their eyes, the same shy smile. The first few minutes were awkward, filled with hesitant hellos and polite introductions. But then Sarah Miller looked at my mom, and tears welled in both their eyes. They hugged, a long, emotional embrace that seemed to release 18 years of pent-up emotion. After that, the walls came down. We spent the whole weekend together. We looked at baby pictures, marveling at the 2 days when the photos didn't match the families. Clara and Jessica were shy at first, but they quickly discovered a shared love for art and bad sci-fi movies. They talked for hours, filling in the gaps of each other's lives, two branches of the same tree that had finally grown towards each other. It wasn't a fairy tale ending where everything was suddenly perfect. It was messy and complicated and beautiful. We weren't two separate families anymore. We were something new, something undefined. One big, strange, extended family, connected by a twist of fate. As we were leaving, Jessica gave me a hug. "Thank you," she whispered, "for telling that joke. I was stunned." "I'm so sorry, No," she said, smiling. "You're the one who was brave enough to bring the secret into the light. We're all better for it." On the plane home, the silence was different. It wasn't tense anymore, it was peaceful. Clara leaned her head on my shoulder, looking at a picture on her phone, a selfie of her and Jessica, both of them beaming. My birthday joke didn't break our family, it exposed a crack that was already there. And by doing so, it allowed us to finally, painstakingly, put the pieces back together, stronger and more whole than we had ever been before. Sometimes, the darkest secrets are just waiting for a little light to heal. Thanks so much for watching. If you have a family story that changed everything, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more true stories. See you next time.